on the website, this says this is the English location. And they were like, no. And I'm like, well, what do I do? How the do I get internet?
Yeah.
Help me.
So listen, everything that they're saying is very true, and it also makes it sound like, why the hell should I move to Japan?
マトカが参ります。ご注意ください。
Hey friends, what's good? So I feel like lately I've been scouring the internet trying to find entertaining things to watch because, let's face it, because of quarantine and all that kind of stuff, the amount of things that there are to watch are kind of getting slimmer and slimmer, I would say. And I'm always just looking around YouTube to find just things that I can relate to, basically, or things that are entertaining. And I recently found a new podcast that came out featuring the Anime Man, Giguk, and Sea-Dog VA. But they recently created a podcast called Trash Talk where they talk about anime and more anime and basically anime. And I mean, that's cool. I love anime. I watch a lot of it as well. But the thing that struck me is one of their podcast episodes features them talking about their experiences moving to Japan, because they're all anime YouTubers and they're from like different places around the world, but now they're all living in Japan at the moment. And what relates more to me than moving to Japan, because that's what I did too, bro. Now I feel like the process of moving to Japan is kind of different for everyone. The process itself is still more or less the same, but everyone has different experiences because some people know Japanese before they move to Japan, some people don't, and they're kind of learning it along the way. And I wanted to see if their experiences were reflective upon what I experienced when I moved to Japan. Now, of course, there are going to be some differences as well. I know that they're there for work, basically. So they're on a working visa while I was there on a student visa. They also have a company backing them as well, so I'm not sure if it made the process easier or not. But if you want to watch the podcast itself, they have a YouTube channel called Trash Talk where you can watch the podcast. The one where they talk about everything about Japan is like 2 hours long, so I'm not gonna watch the whole thing, but they have a highlights channel as well, so I'm just gonna watch a few videos from the highlights, see what I can relate to, see if there's anything I can comment on. And you know, I'm not an expert at Japanese or moving to Japan, I just have had the experience as well, so maybe there's some kind of experience that I had compared to these guys. So let's do this like reaction, yo.
My first question to you guys is like, what made you decide to move to Japan in the first place? Because you've been here for how many years now?
I've been here 4 years now.
Yeah, I guess for you it's more obvious.
4 years.
I mean, yeah, because I've spent like half my life here, and I have family up north and in Tokyo.
See, I feel like the moving process is so much easier when you have family or like a lot of people that you know actually in Japan or know Japanese. Just because they already know all the processes as well, so just like the processes of registering an address and stuff like that, like because they have that experience compared to like just going on your own. I mean, I feel glad that I went on my own just because I could learn all this stuff more naturally.
I wanted to move here for a while. I remember like since we first met each other and since my first trip to Japan, I was like, I could really see myself living here. This is not like the typical weeb kind of fantasy. I actually never had that.
I think if you want to move to Japan because you think it's going to be like an anime, you shouldn't do that. It's so much more than just like what you see, that anime kind of lifestyle. I don't know if you'll be disappointed, but it is going to be different for sure. So I've seen people too who moved there strictly because of like the anime scene and stuff like that. Honestly, I feel like when I moved there, I actually stopped watching a lot of anime. I didn't watch nearly as much as I did and do when I'm like actually in America. So it's kind of weird, but yeah, it's perspective, I guess.
I remember the first time I came here, it was so eye-opening for me because it was like, you know that feeling when you're like, man, this country just works.
Yes.
And it's to do with my job.
So true. Just like the lifestyle is so different, I think. And I think you appreciate it more if you've never moved somewhere else before too. Because I think if I lived in a lot of different places, I wouldn't appreciate it as much. But because it was the first place I've ever lived outside of like California, basically, it was like so different and a lot more meaningful, I think.
I thought people who were learning the language at the time, you know, I was like 15, 14, I was like, that's kind of cringe, bro. Yeah. But like now that
Same,
I've
bro,
actually started to
same.
learn it.
I regret it so much.
I regret that like I didn't learn any because I could have been like a few months ahead at least, right,
Yeah.
of learning the language.
I wish I was more weeaboo.
Yeah,
Like now
I
that the
See, also, I think that's the thing. Like, you shouldn't regret not learning Japanese or whatever. It doesn't matter what age you are or anything like that. If you want to do it, you should just go because the struggle is legit real and it will really help your Japanese. Like, as long as you're not like just too passive about it and just say like, oh, I'm only gonna use English when I'm in Japan. I feel like I got to a pretty good level in just a year, which isn't that much time because I've spent like time just taking regular classes as well, like just like summer classes or something like that. The progress was so minimal even after like, you know, a few months that that's why I never really did any more studying or learning until I was actually in Japan.
You know, and a part of me, I remember when I used to think that way, like anyone who's learning it, it's just like, wow, it's so sad. You're never like actually going to learn it. But like, to be fair, if you're learning anything, you know, any other kind of language, especially if you only speak one, I think that's like, good on you. Like, better yourself, you know. Yeah, like you said, I had no intention or want to live here. I don't think I was still sold yet on moving here because I think, I don't know about you guys, but I really like need friends.
That's true too though. That's true. Like, if you have a hard time making friends, it's not going to be easy in Tokyo for sure, but in Japan in general. Because not only is there a language barrier, but like Tokyo people are not necessarily like super outgoing to meet new people. You need to make an effort to join clubs, meet foreigners, and then that will also bring you to more Japanese people if your foreign friends know them too. Like, it's a whole process. I don't think I was really making like good friends until 6 months in.
I think the hardest part of the process was finding an apartment.
Especially if you're a foreigner as well. You basically play under different rules.
The hardest thing, at least in Japan, from my experience, about why it's so hard to get a fucking apartment here, is because freelancing is not a job.
Okay. I agree. It's hard to find a apartment in Japan if you're a foreigner, just because it feels like there are a lot more requirements. And because you are, you know, you have that foreigner label on yourself too. But even for Japanese people too, like, you need a certain amount of income. Like, they want to know that you are working all the time and that you have enough money to sustain the rent and all that kind of stuff. And if you're a foreigner too, it's like Japanese people don't want to live around you. And not because they're racist or anything like that, but because they're worried about cultural barriers. They're worried how, like, your proficiency with the language as well. Because if you got a problem, like, if there's a freaking fire in your apartment and you don't know how to like call the fire department or the police or anything like that, if there's an issue, or even if maintenance people come and you're like, 全然わかりません, then it's like, that's a problem, right? So it is difficult, I would say. Yeah, let's see what else I have to say.
A lot of the time it was really dumb stuff like, can you sort the bins properly, and like stuff like
It's
that.
like,
which
yes,
is, like,
we're not 12-year-olds.
It's like the main concern you'll hear all the time is, can you sort your trash properly? And it's like, okay, it might be different from where I'm from, but like,
I can learn.
Foreigners aren't stupid. Like, we're not dumb or anything like that. But it's those few occasions where foreigners end up not doing that, or they don't show the cultural respect that they're supposed to. And it gives a bad name for all foreigners who want to move to Japan, because then when Japanese people think of foreigner, then they think of that disrespectful prick instead of like model citizen right here, you know?
The government councils in the area give you an English manual that tells you
exactly. But it's not that much work, especially if they give you English stuff.
It's not rocket science.
Yeah,
like,
it's not like you're having to do like the weirdest stuff imaginable to this stuff. Like, it's basically just rinse your stuff, separate all of it. That's pretty much it. If there's any advice you can give someone who's watching who wants to come to Japan, what would you say is like the main piece of advice? So if they want to get a working visa.
I mean, I didn't apply for a working visa.
Yeah.
But so I don't have too much experience.
We didn't apply for it. We had immigration lawyers help
That's
us.
so
Yeah, we had
nice.
immigration lawyers help us, but I mean, I've applied for visas before, and the most painful part is just waiting. It's
and you're going to be waiting a lot.
You're going to be waiting a long time. And
I will say the Japanese government, or like whoever does the visa kind of stuff, they're not the fastest people in the world. Whenever you go to like a Japanese embassy or anything like that, like, it's not always the most pleasant experience. I'll just say that.
limbo kind of.
Because we had it was like the initial thing where they file for something called a certificate of eligibility, which is basically if the government decides if you can have a visa,
bright.
which isn't the visa itself, which already sounds to me like that sounds like we're adding steps where steps don't need to be. But as you move to Japan, you'll learn that's what they love to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had to wait. What was it? 6 weeks for that? 6 to 8
sounds
weeks?
about
Yeah,
right.
it could have been 6 to 8 weeks for this piece of paper to arrive, which then they send by post, which makes you feel so uneasy because you're like, they're sending me a piece of paper through the mail that I've waited 2 months for, and you're just like, something's going to go wrong. Someone's going to take it. So you get this piece of paper, right? To get this thing, you need to prove that you have a good reason to work in Japan, that the job or because you have to say what your work is.
Yeah.
They need to check that you are actually like in that field, etc., etc.
Yeah, we had to send so much evidence that we were doing valuable work that could,
which I'm sure some people would argue YouTube isn't.
Honestly, too, if you want to just work in Japan as well, it's like the easiest way is to just work for a company that sponsors the visa. I mean, it still puts work on you to like, get everything done and whatnot.
And then, so we get that certificate of eligibility, which is, we get that. And then you have to go to the embassy.
to turn that into a visa, and then they'll put a visa into your passport.
Again, there's more steps because, first of all, if you live in the UK,
you right there,
the only...
Yeah, the embassy process is pretty intense too, because especially if you live like not close to an embassy, like you have to go to the embassy in order to get your visa registered and stuff. I think for me, I had to go there and leave it there for a week and then come back later, even though it's just like a piece of paper. I'm pretty sure they're gonna say the exact same thing here too. Yeah, they don't make the process easier or anything like that, and if the embassy is far away, you literally just have to make a trip.
Embassies in London. Now, I would feel bad for someone who lives in the north of Scotland. I don't think they have an embassy in Scotland.
No.
And in Wales, I had to go all the way from Wales. Luckily there's fast train, doesn't matter. But point is, one embassy, so you're going to be taking a day trip to get this thing.
Yeah.
Worst part is that then if you go to the embassy, which you might have to have traveled cross country for, you have to wait 5 days.
5 days.
Which is a little
not like a week, same thing.
So you have to go back.
So I guess the process is more or less the same, like for everywhere.
Like if you're poor,
honestly, if you're already poor, like I don't know if you should like just like get up and move to Japan. I think you need to get a little bit of money first, and then you can do it. Like you can go for work and stuff like that, but it's not like, oh, I'm gonna go to Japan and make it rich. Like I don't really think that's the ideal mindset that you should go into.
Things where it's just like, my God, why are we doing this?
But then again, like realistically, how many people in like the buttfuck middle of Scotland is going to apply for a visa?
I bet there's one person from like the North Island and like Scotland who's like, dude, I had to fly.
Is there anything else that like haven't met your expectations or haven't met your preconceptions?
This is gonna sound dumb as fuck, right? And I know it's gonna sound dumb, but I knew things were going to be difficult, that I couldn't speak Japanese or read Japanese.
Right.
More so read than anything. I feel you can, for some reason, you can be fine not speaking Japanese here, but if you can't read, like you're in for like a storm of trouble.
That's actually really true and a good point. Reading aside, especially, it's just kanji. Like if you don't have an adept knowledge of kanji, it can be like super, super difficult. Like if you go restaurants or you go shopping or stuff like that, at least if you're like face to face with someone, you can like mime shit out. Like they kind of understand broken English as well. But if it's just like you get a letter and it's like, what the hell is this? So a lot of times like I would just be afraid to open my mailbox just because I don't know what's gonna be in there. I don't know are these flyers, are these advertisements, or is it actually like, oh, the building is on fire? I don't know. That was tricky, and Google Translate doesn't do crap. You can use the camera feature and like look at it and it's supposed to translate or whatever. Don't rely on that. Honestly, just make friends with Japanese people and have them help you out. That's literally the best way to do it. Like I had a Japanese friend who was like lived close to me. Even though he didn't speak any English, like I could still understand when he just explained things to me in Japanese rather than having it written down. I don't know what the hell it means. So that's like my biggest tip for sure.
The only reason we've been able to get through it is because we've had fucking
friends, we got a company helping us. Like it makes it so much easier for all. Joey,
I
shout
am
out to
that
Joey.
friend.
Joey helped me a lot when we moved here. Like helped me out doing all the
I had to go to the town hall with you to like, fill out your papers.
But that's the thing, right? Is that you'd think like in the big population areas they'd have like a lot of English support, but I think they said like if you come on these certain days, like setting up internet. Do you remember how much of a hassle that was?
Oh my God.
Like, I remember that AU, right? They say they have an
I was very lucky that I didn't have to set up
That's a fucking
internet for my apartment. It was already set up. So I was like, yes.
They have a tablet which can call a call center that can translate the person for you,
Yeah.
kind of, but not really. But that's the closest.
Did you
are
even get
going
that
to
far? 'Cause I didn't even get to the guy on the tablet. I just turned up saying, on the website, this says this is the English location.
Yeah.
And they were like, no. And I'm like, well, what do I do? How the fuck do I get internet?
Yeah, yeah.
Help me.
So listen, everything that they're saying is very true, and it also makes it sound like, why the hell should I move to Japan? Because, damn, it sounds like so much work, sounds like too much money, and not worth it, right? But this is still just like one experience, right? I feel like not everyone has the same experience as like these guys. Like, I can relate to a lot of this stuff for sure, but even then, like, I didn't have any of the resources that they had when I first started. I didn't have you know, friends or relatives or anyone to help me at first. I didn't have Japanese language very well either. I didn't have a company supporting me or anything like that. So it totally is possible. And I think you just need to learn to rely on the things that you know can help you. So if you enroll into a language school, rely on those people, because you know that they're gonna speak some English at least, like the front desk people or whatever, because they helped enroll you in the first place. If you're working a job, rely on the people who help you with the visa and stuff like that. If they're sponsoring your visa too, they should be able to help you with some of the moving costs and the moving process as well, maybe finding an apartment too. Like, you kind of just have to pull in your resources, and even though it is scary and some of these things can happen, they're not necessarily going to happen to you. It's kind of all up in the air. Like, after watching this, maybe your expectations are like, oh man, all this shit is going to happen, it's going to be so hard to move. I think you just need to be open to all possibilities and take it one at a time, instead of just being like, man, this sucks and this sucks and this sucks, and so like this is all just like crashing upon me and I'm getting overwhelmed. Like, you just need to have a defined reason, like, I want to move to Japan because it's awesome. And then everything else is kind of just like going with the flow, I think.
Real positive message coming out of this episode.
No, because that's the thing a lot of people don't talk about, which is how hard it is to live here, actually live here, without speaking Japanese. Because coming on, like we said, it's so different living here as, you know, working here and just visiting here as a tourist.
Yeah.
There's a world of difference, and there's so many little things, like, for example, registering with the town hall.
Yeah.
How the fuck am I supposed to do that if I don't speak?
He's right. I think it is difficult to like live in Japan if you don't know Japanese. But the thing is too, if you expect to learn all your Japanese in an environment where you don't necessarily use it, like basically where you live outside of Japan, you're still going to be confused about a lot of things when you move to Japan too. Because even just like conversation and speaking and the words that they use may be different from what you're used to in the textbook as well. And I think for me, learning Japanese while going through all these struggles really solidified my Japanese, but also when I move back to Japan, or if those things are ingrained in my head, like those processes, so I'm not gonna have as much trouble. Even, you know, 5-10 years down the line, if I had to do it all over again, at least I remember at least like the processes and some of the words that I had to use and the phrases that I had to use in order to get shit done, just because like it was freaking scary. Like, it wasn't like a walk in the park. I had to, like, you know, figure out what I was gonna say, what they might say back, the process in order to register at town hall and all that kind of stuff. I had to do that all by myself. The mistakes that you make, or like whatever, like the fear of having of making mistakes, like that helps to solidify those things in your head for sure. I think in the end, it really just comes down to what you feel comfortable with. When I moved to Japan, I was at a point in my life where I was just like, I'm just gonna take things as they are. Like, I don't want to feel comfortable. I want to feel uncomfortable in order to learn all these things and get new experiences. So if that's kind of not your mindset, it's going to be a lot harder for you to assimilate into Japanese culture, or just, you know, get the confidence in order to move in the first place. But I think I'm gonna end the video here. We actually went through a lot, so I do want to make a video just about my personal process and the things that I went through in order to move to Japan, and just give my recommendations. So if you are planning to move to Japan in the future, or are in the process right now, maybe some of the tips that I give you can help. Because it really is something that isn't talked about a whole lot. Like if you were a newbie like me and just didn't know anything, I would have treasured the information that I know now in the process where I was just like freaking lost and like, what do? I don't know. If it's not uploaded yet, it will eventually be somewhere up here. And I'll see you next time. Peace.